And we are live. Are you guys loving that new theme music? I'm over here vibing. It's really cool. So this is Finlit Live. This is the show where we talk about financial literacy and personal finances. And today we have a really exciting show for you guys because we're talking about your taxes and where they're going as far as the school districts and the city is concerned. And I have a lady that's running for city council for the city of Houston. So obviously she knows the city of Houston, but it applies to wherever you are in the United States because if you pay taxes, guess what? They're spending your taxes. And so it's very important to know where it's going and what's going on. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get lit. I'm super excited to bring on the next guest because Holly and we connected at a networking event and we talked our ears off for about 30, 45 minutes just standing in the hallway. She's super sharp. And without any further ado, Holly. Hey, Holly, how's it going?
Hey, how are you, Darnald? It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you for taking time out your campaigning, your busy schedule, not only being a mom, but campaigning for city council. Um, Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And what are you up to?
Hey, so thank you again for the invite. My name's Holly Maria Flynn Vilaseca, and I'm running for Houston City Council at large, position 2. I'm on the campaign trail in between meetings, so I am calling from the car. That's the life right now. So I appreciate um, forgive me, please, also for the background. But look, my background is I grew up in a small rural town in Ohio. I'm the daughter of a Colombian immigrant, and I was the last of 6 and the first to go to college in my family. And I went to school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And when I graduated college, I came to Houston, Texas, and I taught in a bilingual classroom in Houston ISD, which is the largest school district in Texas. And I've been in Texas now for 19 years, had the opportunity to serve as a school board member for Houston ISD, which is, as I mentioned, largest school district in Texas. And I'm the mother of 2. I'm interested in safe and healthy communities and making sure that our tax dollars are spent extremely expeditious, very carefully, judiciously, right? And we have our work cut out for us in public service and making sure that we have a great city where we can live, work, play, and thrive. And we need to make sure that we're doing a good job by not compromising any of the local services that all Houstonians need and deserve in all parts of the city. And we need to make sure that we're spending our taxpayer dollars wisely. We have a big budget and a big responsibility. And I have two kids. I've got a 16-month-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. And what I want for my kids, I want for every family in Houston.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate. Working full time, campaigning full time, and being a mom full time. How do you do it?
It's a lot, I'll be honest, but at the same time, it's just being wise with your time. I am very fortunate that I work for an employer that allows me the opportunity to really play out what I like to do with my servant leadership, right? When I was an elected trustee for 5 years, and I had been on the sidelines for a year and a half. And when I said that I was running for city council, they were very excited and supportive of me. And I'm very lucky to have that. I do work for a Fortune 100 company on top of everything else. And it's exciting work. It's public sector work across the state of Texas. And we really help people with their operational efficiencies and cities, counties, school districts, higher ed. So I work all different vertical markets, but it is the public sector. So not only in my personal life and personal time do I want to stay committed to serving citizens, right, as in the best capacity as I can, but also it's my day job and it's important for me.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found fascinating about Holly is she's doing exactly what I did when I graduated from college. We actually work for competitors, but I don't work for them anymore. So it's really cool that we connected. Most people have no idea and never heard of what we do or what I did and what she currently does. And so, but with that, today we're talking about taxes. We're talking about school districts. We're talking about city budget. That is a hot topic because if you're alive, what you live, you pay taxes, and you die. Those are the guaranteed things, right? In life, at least in the United States. And so we got to know where our money is going. So inform us, like, what are three of the hot topics that we should be aware of when it comes to paying our taxes and funding the school districts and funding the city? What are the things that we should be aware of as taxpayers?
So first of all, if you own a home here, so in Texas, it's a little different because we have our state taxes and we have our local tax, or we have our local taxes and we have our federal taxes, but we don't have state taxes, right? So it's really, really important for you to know that our sales tax revenue, part of that goes to the city here in Houston and in Texas, and that your note that you pay every month, if you have your taxes that are rolled into your mortgage every month, then there's a big portion of that that goes to your local school district, and there's a big portion of that that goes to your local municipality where you live. And others pay it all at once at the end of the year, or you can roll it in. What we do in our household is we roll it in, so it's added to our mortgage every month. But it's important for you to understand really how much it is that you're paying, whether or not those taxes are increasing, and understanding why they're increasing. So actually lately in the city of Houston and with Houston ISD, the tax rate itself has decreased, but your property values have increased. And so you are paying more, but the rate actually is decreasing. And so if you have an issue with your property values, which is a good thing, we're living in a booming economy here in Houston and in Texas, but at the same time, it might hurt a little bit every month when you're paying those additional taxes, but knowing that it goes to a good cause, right? And you want to make sure then that since you are a taxpayer and you're paying into what's to be a great local school system, along with the services and the infrastructure that's needed to uphold a very strong city or county that you live in, you need to, I would suggest that you look at really how much you're paying, and then follow the money and see how it's being spent at those levels.
That's huge. So that seems like a tall order because, like yourself, everybody's busy, got a lot going on. It's like, how do you keep track of what's happening, especially since it is going various places like the school district and the city? Like, how do you keep track of all that? And is there a resource where you could like go to a website and it's all in one spot, or like educate us?
Yeah. So it's here in Houston, it's budget season right now. So the local school district has to pass a budget by June 30th by law, right? So there are a series of workshops that usually go in to inform the trustees, and their public meetings to inform the public really what the administration is suggesting as being part of the budget. And based on really those discussions, the budget should be a reflection of the values of this public serving entity. It should be a reflection of, where are my priorities as a school district? Where are we putting our money, right? And so those values need to show up. And if there's misalignment there, then there needs to be discussion. And sometimes the administration might get some feedback in the trustees, and sometimes it might not be there, right? So it's important to understand what that process looks like, the timing for it, when those public hearings are. There's a public hearing that's required, but then there are workshops that are helpful to get that understanding, to help communicate really what is in the budget. And you can show up. There are public meetings. You can sign up to speak. You can listen in. You can unpack. I mean, the budget, it's a big document, right? But at least looking at the first couple of pages where it breaks down really what the allocations are by department or by different areas, and usually the majority of budgets in the public sector, the majority of the money is allocated towards people power, towards your human resources or human capital. And the majority of the items that are brought forward for approval at every month meeting or every week for city council, they're mostly routine items, but there could be some special items. So understanding that, look, there are things that are being voted on and approved during the year, right? But the budget itself has to be approved separately, and understanding the timeline and how to get involved is important. And so that information by law has to be made public. So if you go to like the City of Houston's website, you can get information on the budget. It has to be posted publicly. I have a calendar here of a list of workshops because right now it's budget season for the City of Houston as well. And they're also live. So if you can't make it, you can get a better understanding for what's discussed, what's being presented, some of the things that the council members are and the mayor is asking about and for. And then there's opportunities again to sign up to speak, or you could reach out to your city council member or trustee and say, hey, look, can you help me understand this piece? Or is this something that's routine? Or why aren't we spending more on, say, infrastructure? Or why aren't we spending more on public safety? And get some answers, because that's really what the job is of your elected trustee or your elected council member is, and then be a part of the process. It's important. It's thousands of dollars that we pay into it, and we would expect that we have a better community as a result of how those dollars are being spent.
Absolutely. How can we get more money for teachers? Our teachers are
That's
grossly
right.
underpaid for exactly what they do.
That's right. And there's some complicated levels too, because every 2 years the legislature here in Texas meets, and then there are laws that are written to that and requirements, right, that maybe school districts have to spend more money on safety requirements, and sometimes they're spelled out and sometimes they're a little vague. Usually they're spelled out though, and then there's a timeline as to when you have to implement them, but sometimes they're not fully funded. So then understanding, hey, look, why is this happening? And then, so those questions wouldn't necessarily be directed towards your trustee or your city council member, but then towards your state representative or your senator.
So that's
there's
a
lot of things that, but a lot of things to advocate for and to understand and to unpack. But again, like, you would want to make sure that, look, I would think that as a citizen, like, I want to make sure that the roads that we're driving on are smooth. They're not bumpy, because what's the likelihood of me having to get a tire replaced or a wheel replaced because I hit a big pothole, right? We want to make sure that those things are working and maintained. First of all, that's an ongoing expense, right? So what are we doing to maintain the roads that we drive on with a growing population and more use, while we're still building out on top of that, right? So again, it's a lot, and it can be complex, but at the same time, these are the questions that need to be asked. And what is the plan? Short term, long term? How is that showing up in the budget? What do we need to account for? If there's a nice gift of federal funds, given the pandemic, it was a necessity, right? So for the school districts, it was ESSER funding. For the cities, municipalities, it was ARPA funding. So how is that money being spent? Because that's a lot of dollars that were gifted to be able to help during the pandemic and a little bit after, but how are they being spent? And are they being one-time expenses, or are they being used to sustain ongoing expenses? And if that's the case, then what's going to happen once the money dries up? Where are we going to be able to pull from? So that's something that I'm interested in right now as I'm looking at the budget for the city of Houston and I'm running for city council.
Absolutely.
And as a local taxpayer, right? Hey, great, we have the funds. It looks like, but what's going to happen next, right?
Absolutely. That's the $1 million question, right? So when it comes to school budgets, and let's talk HISD specifically, since you're very familiar with HISD.
Yep.
Like, what type of budget are they working with on an annual basis on average? And obviously, it sounds like it's gone up because of the property values going up. And then from a city level, like, what type of budget are they working with on an annual basis on average?
Yes. So so for Houston ISD, and I have the budget is about $2.2 billion on an annual basis. And of that, I can tell you what the tax rate is currently. So per $100 of taxable value per year in 2022, it was a tax rate of $1.03. All right. And for the city of Houston, it's a $5.7 billion budget for fiscal year 22-23. And the city of Houston's property tax rate for 2022 was about 53 cents per $100 of assessed value. And it was a reduction from the city's current tax rate of 55 cents on each $100 taxable value. So those are the current tax rates right now for both of those entities. You can see that HISD is almost double, but the size of HISD is smaller, right, than the city of Houston. So the tax base isn't as big. So even though there's more money that's collected, right, I mean, the tax rate's higher, the city of Houston overlaps with other school districts. So that's sort of how that works there. But still, it's $2.2 billion for city of Houston and $5.7 billion city budget. For Houston
That
ISD,
blows my mind.
$5.7 billion for city budget. Yeah.
That blows my mind that HISD's budget is almost half of the whole city's budget. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of money.
Well, it's in addition to. It's in addition to. So they're two separate entities, but it is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So the city of Houston's budget, though, is also large. And again, a lot of it goes to personnel. And the personnel is what really in the city is what makes the city go round, right? They deliver the services, the solid waste, the garbage disposal, trash pickup, the public safety, right? So firefighters, EMT, police officers, anything in public works, the airport system, transportation. Just in transportation alone, I think there's like almost 5,000 employees. And Metro picks up actually 1 penny per dollar on the sales tax side. So when you're purchasing things in Houston, so that there's money that's going back to Metro as you're spending your money at the Galleria or at different places across the city. So it's pretty interesting how it all works. And again, like actually HISD, I will share this, not to get overcomplicated, but there's legislation that passed probably 25 or 30 years ago. It's called Robin Hood legislation. And because the city of Houston or Houston ISD has a pretty healthy tax base between commercial tax and homeowners, right? And even if you're renting an apartment, I mean, you're still through your rent. There's money that's going back. Dues are being paid. Okay, so it's
Absolutely.
good to, everyone has skin in the game, right? Because that money is not going to be discounted from, the landlord. They're going to make sure that is passed on to the renters, right? And so it's just important to understand that, that we're paying into the system. We should expect, nothing but the best from what our local services and our local school district delivers based on what it is that we're doing. So making sure that, again, you hold people accountable for the decisions, you ask the questions, and you participate. So I'm a big fan of participatory budget processing, which affords the opportunity for people to participate, to share. What are your values? What do you think needs to happen, right? And to collect data through surveys. And I know that the city of Houston this year did embark in a participatory budget process, and they're in the middle of it now. But there were surveys that went out. There were call outs that went out to residents of Houston for you to give some feedback or to probably rank order, what are some of these priorities? Where do you think you should see more of, less of? And then to take that back to inform people at the city as they're putting together the budget. There's also a school of thought around zero-based budgeting as well, where you're starting from zero and you're building a budget from the ground up instead of sort of starting with what we had last year and then peeling away, right? Can be a little complicated, but it can be a good fresh start, right? Maybe a new administration would want to take that approach on. So we are having elections this fall, so there will be a new mayor in place and there will be several new council members because many have been term limited out. So seeing together with the 16 council members along with the mayor what the approach is going to be and what the after action review is on this year's participatory budgetary process is, I would be anxious to learn a little bit more about what the vision is collectively.
Absolutely. And I know it's been a bit controversial, and if you don't want to go there, I understand. But the state of Texas took over HISD. And so, how does that affect the taxpayers? And do they still have a say since the state has taken over? Like, how you might not even know yourself because this is relatively new and fresh. What's going to happen
it's
there?
new territory. But it's new territory, but the Texas Education Agency is appointing a board of managers and a new superintendent, and they're supposed to come in by June 1st, and that is ahead of when the budget is going to be adopted. So by law, the budget has to be adopted by June 30th. I would think that they were going to comply by the law, and that would move in that direction forward. I'm not quite sure what the years to come will say and how long that presence is going to be here. But what I was saying earlier about the Robin Hood stuff, right? Actually, Houston ISD, even though 80% or more of students qualify for free or reduced price lunch, and there's a healthy tax base here, even though our schools and our students need it. Robin Hood legislation and the legislature has something in place called recapture or excess revenue. So if your student enrollment is declining and you have a healthy tax base, you have to there's a calculation that's worked out and they evaluate it every year. You have to send the excess revenue back to the state. And then the state is supposed to redistribute it to rural districts or smaller school districts that don't have as much of a healthy tax base. But I don't necessarily think that that's happening. So I would ask about that to your state legislature. Hey, what's going on with the money that HISD, I know like Spring Branch ISD pays into Austin ISD. There's probably 200 of the 1,200 school districts that has triggered this excess revenue thing. So our local dollars aren't staying local, right? So what does that mean? Yeah.
Wow. Awareness is half the battle, right?
That's right. That's right.
Wow. You definitely shared a lot, and we appreciate you for raising awareness. And how can people get a hold of you? How can they support you in your campaigning if they wanted to? What's the best way to reach out to you?
So you can reach out. You can visit my campaign website. It's www.hollyforhouston.com. And there is an area that calls for budget accountability, budget transparency. So you can read more about what I mean by that on my website. You can also write me at info@hollyforhouston.com. You can call me 713-482-1373. My lines are open. If you're interested in advocating or learning more about the budget for the City of Houston, you can go to the City of Houston's website and you can find out information there. And the same goes for Houston ISD. And you can see like past budgets that have been adopted. You can look at what the tax rate adoption has been year over year. If you have an issue with your property tax values going up too much and it's, you want to fight that, there's a process to do that as well. You may have gotten some mail pieces from lawyers that will represent you in front of HCAD, which is a Harris County Appraisal District, so that you can fight and see if you can get a reduction in what your homestead value is. I also did want to say too that if you are 65 or older and living in Houston, that there is a low heat exemption, and also for the Houston ISD. So during a June 8th meeting, Houston City Council approved an ordinance that increases a property tax exemption from $160,000 to $260,000 for city residents who are age 65 or older. So there was one for 160, but they went up to 260. So if you have, that meeting, that the ordinance was already passed maybe last year, but if you have some issues with that, also let your voice be known to your city council representative. And if you're sitting here in Houston, you have your local council representative that's wherever it is that you live, but you also have 5 at-large representatives as well. So you have 6 council members working for you, plus the mayor. All right, so make sure you take advantage of that.
Excellent. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking time out of your campaign, and I know this is valuable time for you. So it really means a lot to me that you're willing to jump on the show, and I wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Darnald. It was great to link up with you and with all of your viewers tonight. I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you for the
Absolutely, no problem. Have a good evening. All right, so if you got any value out of today, go ahead and smash that like button and share this with your friends and family, because it's important to be educated, not just on how you budget your specific money, but also how the city and the school districts are budgeting their money. And so the purpose of this show is to raise awareness, because this does involve personal finances, because taxes is usually the first thing that's taken out your paycheck, right? And it's probably a good chunk of your paycheck. So what do you want to know where those dollars are going and how they're spent? And so if you find any value, and share this with your friends and family, that way they can be made aware, especially if you live here in the city of Houston, you know exactly what's happening here in the city of Houston. Reach out to Holly if you have any questions, and support her if you live in the city of Houston. So I appreciate you guys for taking time out of your schedule, and we're going to be back next week, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I appreciate you guys for getting lit.